All right, hello everybody. We'll go ahead and get started with our third spring flood outlook for the season. Here is the presentation for Red River and Devil's Lake Basins for February 24th flood outlook issuance. So the bottom line up front, maybe you've seen the numbers already released today, and you'll see that the risk for significant flooding across the basin has increased just a little bit again since our February 10th outlook. So we remain significant flood chances higher than our historic chances, with just another uptick from where we were at from the last two outlooks. Now our general message is moderate to low end major flooding is the main threat for most locations up and down the valley. There will be some pockets that experience just some minor flooding. As we've talked about before, the drought conditions back from 2021 have much improved due to that fall precipitation that we received. Soil moisture and base stream flow were able to kick back up to near normal due to that fall precipitation. And then so far this winter, our snowpack and our snow water content are generally above normal from what we normally see. Later this week, into the weekend, we will see a brief warm up finally for a bit, kind of get out of these negative single-digit temperatures, and then kind of trending back towards maybe some colder than normal temperatures later after that, with minor precipitation chances at least through the next 7 days. The March, April, and May climate outlooks continue to suggest equal chances for below normal and above temperatures and precipitation, so no real strong signal either way for the rest of the winter and as we head into the spring. So on the left, you'll see our colored dots here for our 50% chance flooding for our forecast points from the February 10th outlook. Back then we were saying minor to moderate, maybe a few pockets of low end major. This outlook today, you'll see on the right, and there has been an increase in some of those purple squares, especially down in the Southern Valley, and maybe a few more moderate red squares also. So a little bit more of the minor to maybe possibly no flooding on the outskirts of the tributaries, but especially up and down the main stem red, looking at more in that moderate to low end major categories. We've seen this slide before, the US Drought Monitor back in August of 2021, when we were at the peak of our drought conditions, extreme and exceptional drought across the area. And the latest outlook from this week continues to indicate some abnormally dry conditions, especially across the Devil's Lake Basin and the northern portions of the valley. That southern half or so of the Red River Valley looking more normal again, especially after the recent precip that we've received in the last week or so. So this last outlook did eradicate some of the lingering moderate drought conditions that were across portions of the north. So kind of looking more normal and maybe a little abnormally dry across the north with this latest issuance. The fall winter precipitation thus far, so since October 1st until about just now, you'll see plenty of dark green and blue across the basin, generally indicating at least 2 inches above normal for that time period, much more widespread, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 inches across parts of the area. Soil moisture, like we've talked about before on the left from last summer, when our soil moisture was really, really dry, we were at the very low percentile there. And then on the right, this was just yesterday's calculation. We continue that kind of normal soil moisture across the central and northern portions of the valley, with that southern valley just slightly above normal and from last fall's precip. And then of course that's the area where most of that precip fell in the last week or so also. Stream flow, like I said, back in August on the left was well below normal across the area, and those fall rains really helped to bump those stream flows back up to around normal values as we froze up last fall, early winter. So we've covered the first couple ingredients for spring flooding, the fall moisture, and the base stream flow. Moving into the current frost depths, you'll see they just keep getting lower and lower as we've been quite cold. Grand Forks at our office here this week, we measured down to 34 inches. Fargo has dropped a bit down to 24 inches. And you'll see most places across a good part of the basin kind of in that, nearly 2 feet to even 3-4 feet frost depth The only exceptions really being in the very far southern portion of the basin. So a little deeper than we've been used to, but it's been cold a lot of this month and back in January, so that really helped that frost get pretty deep. So here's the snow depth map from our last issuance back on February 10th. Roughly 6 to 20 inches or so across the basin. You'll see a little bit more kind of over in the Devil's Lake Basin, and then over in the northwest Minnesota area. We were sitting at 12 inches 2 weeks ago today here in Grand Forks, and our Fargo observer was measuring around 8 inches. So let's take a look at the map today. So 2 weeks later, you'll see we did get kind of a big increase. And some of that, especially in the Southern Valley, was from that precip that we just received in the last week. And I think a lot of it, especially across the northern Devil's Lake Basin and over in portions of far northern Minnesota, might be just from some airborne surveys and observations that we were able to get in the last couple of weeks to kind of fill in some gaps and upgrade that data set. So that might be part of it, but definitely precip in the last week or so has definitely made an impact. So you'll see on the northern Minnesota is quite high now, up into the low 20s or so for snow depth. And then in that Southern Valley area, kind of from far southeastern North Dakota over to Fergus, over to Wadena, that kind of area got bumped up also here in the last few weeks. Here in Grand Forks, we're still sitting at about 8 inches. Fargo's still sitting at about 9. From earlier this week, an observation from our Breckenridge observer way down south came in with 19 inches, and that was following their big snowfall earlier this week. So I thought that'd be kind of interesting to throw in there so we can see how it kind of varies up and down the valley. Snow water content, so this was back on February 10th, 2 weeks ago, kind of 2 to 4 inches across the basin. We were sitting at 3.3 at our office, and our Fargo observer was at 1.9, so kind of around normal, maybe a little bit above normal back then. Now today's values, maybe a little bit higher, maybe 2 pushing 5 inches. So we did drop down our measurement here a little bit here at our office, and that 19-inch snowpack earlier this week at our Breckenridge site did come up with a water value of 4.2 inches. So definitely some more water down there in the southern basin following this last precipitation blizzard event where I think they had over an inch of liquid precipitation with all that snowfall. So obviously that's a big factor in the bumping up of these numbers with this latest outlook, especially up and down the red main stem. So on the left here, excuse me, is the ranked simulated snow water equivalent straight from the river model that our numbers come from. And as we talked about before, on the left is from about roughly 2 weeks ago. And you'll see that eastern North Dakota side was kind of in that 90% plus historical ranking for snow water, with a little bit less for the rest of the valley. And then on the right, you'll see that this is this week's run for their modeled snow water ranking. And you'll see that dark blue has kind of covered more of the basin. So obviously that's from recent precipitation and such. So it's really no surprise to see that. So that'd be interesting to show that this is actually what's in the river model that is generating these outlooks in our future forecasts. So the same kind of information, but looking at it from the actual values, of the actual amounts of snow water. And you'll see on the left from a few weeks ago, kind of looking in that 2 to 4 inch range, a little bit more in eastern North Dakota, like we were saying. And then that did get bumped up a little bit again with this last outlook and precipitation. So a little bit more in the darker greens there, kind of pushing more, maybe up to 5 inches for some locations in the current river model. So we covered a few more ingredients for spring flood. What else are we looking for here? The next week or so, pretty good news. Not looking at a lot for precipitation in the next week. Like we said, still a little cold here the next few days, and then we're going to start warming up a little bit. Might be a little bit more below normal temperatures, but our normal temperatures are now back up to the mid 20s or so for highs. So I don't think anybody's going to complain if we start getting that warm for once. So quiet though on the precipitation front, maybe just a few minor chances here and there. Looking a little further out, kind of more into that first week of March 3rd through 9th. Below normal temperatures, likely to be back for a period, maybe some above normal precipitation as we get a little more active again. A little further out after that, kind of more in that mid-March timeframe, below normal temperatures, possibly continuing. resorting back to those equal chances for below normal and above precipitation. So the same thing we've been saying for the rest of the winter into the spring. So March, April, May, kind of equal chances for below normal and above temperatures and precipitation. So no real strong signal in any direction. With a good portion of the country kind of pushing towards those above normal temperatures, maybe that'll kind of squeak into our area a little bit more than it looks like it already has. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that, because obviously as we start getting warmer, moving into the March and April time period, that's going to start affecting our thaw process and how quickly things start to thaw out. So real quickly, this was the Fargo issuance back 2 weeks ago on February 10th. We were saying, best chances for moderate to low end major. And if we fast forward to today's issuance, I'll go back and forth here a little bit between the 10th and the 14th. You'll see that black line did jump up quite a bit, kind of indicating that major flooding is going to be a pretty sure bet for the Fargo-Moorhead area, unless we happen to really quiet down precipitation-wise and not get a whole lot more between now and thaw time. On the other end of the spectrum, on the lower end here, a few weeks ago we were saying, really good chances for minor flooding for Fargo. And like I said, that got bumped up quite a bit with this last issuance, and you'll see moderate is a pretty sure bet at Fargo no matter what happens from here on out, with good chances for major as we get into the thaw here. And on the high end, still kind of that, lower chances for that higher end major flooding. So at Grand Forks, not quite as drastic as we saw at Fargo. So here's the issuance 2 weeks ago for Grand Forks, kind of that 25 to 75% range, indicating good chances for moderate flooding. And that got bumped up a little bit with this issuance, maybe pushing more a little bit towards that low end major. And then on the lower end, you'll see that 2 weeks ago we were saying, pretty sure bet of minor flooding at Grand Forks, and that has been bumped up a bit to a pretty sure bet for a moderate flooding, no matter kind of what the conditions do between now and then. And then once again, on the very high end, kind of looking at, significantly above normal precipitation will bump us in more solidly into that major category at Grand Forks. So here's a quick slide on Devil's Lake. Once again, this hasn't changed much from the initial issuance we did about a month ago. So this issuance does include 350 CFS pumping throughout the summer months until early November, kind of looking at that 25 to 75% chance of ending up at 1450 to 1451 feet or so. They're currently sitting at 1447.2. So still a hefty rise expected on the lake there, depending on precip conditions as we really get into the late spring and summer. So quickly glancing at the numbers here, on the top left is our outlook from 2 weeks ago. Bottom right is today's outlook. And you'll see the Devil's Lake numbers, like I said, really didn't change much at all. And then the most drastic changes with this outlook are with those numbers on the red. And you'll see within the bottom blue boxes there, 25 to 75% numbers. There is an increase of some purple values in there, indicating better chances for major flooding up and down the main stem. A little bit also more of the red numbers too. So moderate to low end major is looking like a pretty good bet up and down the main stem. As for the Minnesota side, the same kind of display here, top left 2 weeks ago, looking like mostly minor to some moderate flooding. Kind of the same story with today's outlook here on the bottom right. North Dakota tributaries on the top left from 2 weeks ago, quite a bit of red numbers and then some pretty solid major flooding chances there, especially for the Cheyenne and the Wild Rice. And you see those numbers are still there and maybe increased a little bit with today's outlook issuance. Once again, just want to toss a plug out for our probabilistic flood outlook summary, or PFOS graphics, which can be found at weather.gov/FGF/PFOS or PFOS. That'll give you graphics that look similar to this up for all of our forecast points on the red main stem and our tributaries. The same data that we showed in our previous graphics that have always been available, just kind of in a different manner. So here's the one for Fargo, once again indicating 90% chance of reaching the 30 feet or a major flood, and then northward from there, or upwards from there, you'll see better chances for higher values. So the bottom line up front as we end today, the risk for significant flooding is overall higher than our historic chances, which have been raised once again since our last outlook, I should say February 10th. Generally moderate to low end major flooding is kind of the name of the game here, especially up and down the red main stem with some minor pockets of minor flooding on the tributaries. Near normal soil moisture and base stream flow, like we said, have returned near normal to probably more above normal snowpack and snow water content so far this winter. We'll warm up a bit this weekend and next week, and then probably trend back towards colder than normal for a while with minor precipitation chances. The March, April, May climate outlook suggest equal chances for below normal and above temperatures and precipitation. No really strong signal in any direction, so we'll have to see how that all plays out. So we've got one last flood outlook scheduled on Thursday, March 10th. We'll have to wait and see how things are progressing, when things start melting and any water starts moving. And if we're delayed with any of that, possibly we'll get another outlook out later in the month of March, but we'll have to wait and see how things play out. And if we're starting to get water moving and thawing out pretty good, we won't be able to do one. So we'll see how it all works out. Otherwise, Thursday, March 10th is possibly the last one for the season.